I am aware of the hypocrisy and contradiction in me sitting here whinging about international football, considering over the last couple of days I've decided to introduce international football to this channel. It's hypocritical, granted. However, who said you can't have double standards? Because whilst I'm keen to feature the England games and keen to fill the voids that is the international break and wilderness when the Premier League fixtures come to a juddering halt, I can't help but think these fixtures of international football have been completely counterproductive. And you go back to greed, don't you? We've spoken already so many times on this channel about the greed of the Premier League and the television companies and all that sort of thing. And why would FIFA or UEFA be any different? In many respects, they set the standards. They set a benchmark for this type of thing. And I think I want to discuss that today. I also want to discuss we've got a story that Chelsea might not be after Declan Rice. Instead, they might be looking at Jude Bellingham, which I think is a great player, as you'll know if you join me for the preview of the England game. And then also the other thing I want to speak about feeds into the international thing, and that is that it says David Moyes could be without Saïd Benrahma for a considerable period of time in 2021. It's basically the African Nations Cup, which I thought had been moved to a sort of a friendly time, if you know what I mean. And when I don't mean international friendlies, but if you remember, always the African Cup of Nations players, they would disappear in the middle of a season. Sometimes they would come back injured, which is going to feed into what we're going to speak to at the moment. Sometimes they wouldn't come back at all. If you remember Masuaku disappearing that time, and he didn't return for ages. And they seem to move that scheduling from January, and they seemed to move it into the summer, which was right. That's when the Euros would be. That's when the World Cup would be. It makes sense that's when international footballs happen. For some reason, it's going to be held in January and February. Now, that some reason can possibly only be because of COVID and the disruption to football. But the disruption to football is entirely why international football shouldn't be happening at the moment. Look, I think we needed domestic football to come back. We really did. The clubs needed it. The fans needed it. We desperately needed it. It was getting so stale, particularly during that first lockdown. We were all at home. Everyone was going a bit stir crazy, and we needed something to get our teeth into. We needed something to be invested in. We wanted to see our team. And whilst the lack of crowds there is not ideal, the empty stadiums is not ideal, it was just good to see football being played again. And I also feel that the government understood that. They were reticent at the start, but they understood the value of having something that could keep people occupied. You're going to lock people up in their homes, which is what happened. Give them something to watch, give them something to do. And I felt domestic football coming back was important. The international football was totally counterproductive. And when you consider we are now in a period of a second lockdown, it don't feel quite like the first one. It makes no sense that these round of fixtures would happen. Now, I don't mean all of them. Scotland had a massive game. I understand why that one would happen. It was a massive game. It was a playoff, and it was there to get to a major tournament. Great. But I've already said that the England fixtures, I like the Nations Cup tournament or whatever it is, the Nations League. I think it's good, but it's not a necessity. That Nations League was only really there to give validation to friendlies, so as we wouldn't play crappy friendly matches against teams that weren't that important. Considering that people are breaking down by and large on a regular basis, players with, they say muscular injuries, but there's some nasty injuries happening because of the fixture congestion. It's absolute folly to have international games, particularly more or less meaningless ones. And when you look at it, when you look at the context of it, surely as a governing body, FIFA, UEFA, they have a responsibility. They have a responsibility to their national associations, but also have a responsibility to the players. And it's quite clear the managers are moaning about it, the clubs are moaning about it, yet certainly FIFA, UEFA seem to press ahead. The television companies seem to want to press ahead with its scheduling. And I think whilst it's always easy to sit down, always easy to say, oh, players, back in the 70s, they played 60 games a season and this, that and the other. I would certainly, and that's true, I would certainly be of the opinion that players run an awful lot more now. The game is a lot faster. The game is an awful lot fitter. You see it in rugby union. Rugby union, for instance, the pitch in rugby union was very much made for the amateur game, for a group of semi-fit people. Now, the game of rugby union has completely changed. They're a lot bigger, they're a lot more muscular, they're a lot fitter, they're a lot faster. Actually, I would argue in rugby union, the pitch ain't quite big enough anymore. I don't mean they're so big they've grown that they're filling the pitch, but I just mean the collisions. They're 20-stone muscly guys rather than 15-stone fat blokes, basically. And I think football's changed as well. If you were to look at the distance that players run now, and there was any way of measuring it, back in the good old days, I bet they run a lot more. I bet they require a lot more fitness. I bet they're more finely tuned athletes. Gone are the days when Brian Clough would say, young man, stop the bus, and everybody would get off the bus and go and have a pint in the pub and another pint, and they'd jump back on it, and then they'd get the coach, they'd get on the plane, they'd play the European Cup final. Those days are gone. Right, a lot of players don't drink now at all. So they're finely tuned athletes, and the managers and the coaches, they're all telling us that these players are breaking down. So why put extra strain on them? And then you've got the COVID situation. Now, whatever you think, I know, look, the majority of people, they understand the COVID situation. There are some people that don't even think COVID exists. There are some people who think it's just a mild sniffle. Right? Regardless of whether you think it's deadly, a sniffle, or doesn't exist or whatever, they are still testing for it, and there are some positive tests, and it is, by and large, something that's contagious. Whether you think it will do you harm, it appears footballers catching it, they're young people, nothing happens to them. Some of them are completely asymptomatic. However, the football rules still are at the moment. If you get a test, you can't play. You're isolated for 2 weeks. So all these players go out on international duty. I've actually got it here somewhere. Okay, there have been... This latest round, there have been 11 rounds of testing. The first round was on the 31st of August to the 6th of August. That was round 1. We're now on round 11. Basically, the people that test positive in all these rounds of testing are 4, 3, 6, 9, 5, 2, 4, 4. They've just done the latest ones on international, 16. Clearly, people are going on international duty and catching the coronavirus. Well, surely this is reason enough not to do it. Whether you believe it's deadly or whether you believe it's a little cold. If what it's going to do is it's going to put players out for 2 weeks, it's a bad idea. If what it's going to do is put the strain on the infrastructure, it's a bad idea. It's a bad idea, and it's a bad idea that's been driven by greed. And then you look at it and you think, well, actually, if what you've got is a squad of 25 players, and actually already 5 of them are injured and they're having these muscular injuries and stuff like that, then you've actually got 20 players. If what happens is, then two players come back off international duty and they've got COVID, then you're suddenly dealing with 18 players. Well, these are players you're having to wrap in cotton wool anyway. You've already got a struggling squad. What was the point? There was absolutely no point at all. And I just think it's a really, really bad thing. And international football is important. International football does have its place. And this is why I say it is a little bit hypocritical of me, because I will be covering the Iceland game. So please join me on this channel as we rejoice in international football. No, look, I understand that. But it shouldn't be happening at the moment. Quite frankly, I wish we were still playing the Premier League. We didn't need the break in the Premier League. And if they were due a break, and we were worried, and they would, the managers were very worried about the players' fitness, then give them a week. Give them a week off. Give them 2 weeks off. Let them recuperate. And then you've got these, I know sympathy for Liverpool is still on the ground. I understand this. They are the national champions. They're a very, very rich club. They were European champions a couple of minutes ago and whatnot. They can go and afford to buy a new centre-back should they wish to. But, you know, for them to lose Van Dijk and then send their other one out on international duty with England, and for him to play to get in a warm-up for a meaningless game, did he not get injured in training? I think he might have done. And he's out for a year, Gomez. A year. I don't know. Apparently, FIFA are picking up the tab. What's the point? What's the point? Apparently they're going to pay his wages. You know, whoopee-doo. They shouldn't be doing any of it. They do not need the money at all. FIFA, UEFA, do not need the money. It's not like the clubs need the money. The clubs do. The clubs have got wages to pay. The national teams don't have the wages to pay, not for the players anyway. All right, their little board of directors, board of executives, stuff like that. Yeah, okay, fine. But they don't need a football match to do that. I just think it's... Anyway, I hate it. I think it's greedy. I just think there's no need for it at all. And they can't keep doing it. You feel that they keep on pushing. They keep on pushing. They keep on pushing. Something is going to give. And we've got our own Yarmolenko out, of course, haven't we? I do believe, what's the last one? I think Mo Salah has tested positive for COVID-19. Matt Doherty, El Neni, Sterling's got injured. Andy Robertson's got injured. Jordan Henderson. There's a lot of Liverpool players, actually. Keep getting it. Maybe they could do with a new fitness coach. I touch wood. West Ham have not suffered too much. It's not a bitter rant about West Ham. I just think it's absolutely stupid. On the other one, the other story that I was talking about is Chelsea are interested in signing Borussia Dortmund's Jude Bellingham, and they would no longer be interested in Declan Rice. Right? I don't know how interested they were in Declan Rice anyway. As I've said before, I think this has all been driven by Frank Lampard. If Frank Lampard don't get his act together and finish in the top 4, maybe even the top 2 or 3, challenge for trophies, he will be gone because Abramovich is ruthless. Jude Bellingham, I mean, come on. I really like him. Anybody that saw the build-up show to the Belgium game will know what I think. I think he looks a really promising player. I think he looks an outstanding young player. However, come along now. You know, he's only just gone to Borussia Dortmund, who arguably think themselves a bigger club than Chelsea anyway, and they think they're going to... No, it's just not going to happen. And I don't know. I mean, it says here that Eurosport are reporting that they still have an interest in Rice. Eurosport know beyond anyone else. I don't know. But they're making plans not to have him, and they're gonna look at Bellingham instead. So basically, this story won't be running for much longer. This story will run and run and run because Declan Rice is a quality player, despite what everybody else says about him. Anyway, sorry, I don't know why I did a little drum roll. Then I'm off. I'll see you tomorrow. Before I go, please do give a watch to Canning Town Lens, that football sketch show, which is on Amazon Prime now. And I'm going to play you a little clip of it now. This clip is a poem by Chris Ross. Don't know Chris Ross? You should do. An excellent poet. He uploads daily and absolutely wonderful. Clever man, nice man, funny man. And he's not only does he write the poetry, do you speak poetry? I guess you do. Yeah, what do you do? Well, you don't hum it, do you? But anyway, I really like him, and there you go. So take it away, Chris, and don't forget, link in the description below to go and watch. It's for free on Amazon Prime. Don't want anything from you. Just go and watch that football sketch show. Chris is in it. I'm in it. Canning Town Lens in it. My mate Alan's doing the theme tune. What more could you possibly want?
Now, when I was at school, I went out with a girl whose dad was a hospital porter. A nice enough bloke, but now here's the joke. He was only a Tottenham supporter. Now, you're getting a mess when you're trying to impress. So, when he assumed I was one too, I decided to just let it go for a while. What else can a love-struck boy do? We got on all right, and then one Friday night, he asked me to go to the game. Spurs were playing West Ham the next day, down at the old White Hart Lane. Now, she thought that this was a great idea and asked if she could come too. I did have to laugh when she offered her scarf. It was white and a strange navy blue. So I stood with the spuds in the north stand and cheered as the teams were brought on. They got their reward when old Gilzine scored, but their cheering went on for too long. Now, Greavesy had moved from Spurs to West Ham, so cheering for him was all right. But not, it would seem, when he scored for our team. And then he started a fight. So that was me sussed as an hammer. And the journey home was a bit raw. I never saw him or his daughter again. But we did come away with a jaw. Come on, you irons!